All right. Well, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, and there are a lot of new lords at the table, which is great to see. And I think everyone's really excited about the Master Scroll overview. Um, so we took this opportunity to really do a deep dive on it and give a full update on the team. We're going to give a quick alpha UI preview on the minigame and run through its mechanics, which we will release in a mini paper form in the next few days. I'll give an update on StarkNet, an update on the Journey contract, general roadmap update, and and then AMAs. So just to give a recap on anybody that's new, we've been going for about 5 months now, and the team's grown quite a bit. So myself, a lot of you, I'm a full stack dev, come from about eight years of Web 2 background, building full stack e-commerce sites and infrastructure, as well as building businesses in the consumer space, and long-time crypto investor, and tinkerer and hacker and whatnot. Redbeard is very, very similar background to myself, full stack crypto dev. We've been working together for a while now. Squiddy is comms and marketing, so reach out to him for anything related to that. Unidef, another full stack Lord, crypto Lord, Abrax, full stack. You can see we're all basically full stack devs, and we're all hackers and nerds. Dham, he's a full stack dev and some kind of data magician. I don't quite understand what he does, but we throw problems at him and he just solves it. And we actually have some really exciting things we've been working on in the background, which I'll give a little tease, which basically we've created an entire world map, and each realm has its own coordinates on that map. And the map is actually to scale of the whole of the world. And we're creating an interactive Google map almost, where you'll be able to see where your realm is positioned in that whole world. Zeldian, another full stack dev, who's been with us since the alpha. Anon is a game design data magician and has come onto the team in an official role in the last few weeks and is going to be doing PM for the game and general organization. Milan is also a new core lord who is full stack dev and Cairo lord, who's been submitting PRs to the open source repo for a month now, and he's come and joined the core lords as well. Have a look at his GitHub if you're curious. And the newest member is Tim Shell, who everybody knows, everybody should know, is I call him the Lord of Law, and he's an all-round loot god, and he has come onto the team in an official role to be the bridge between loot projects for the distillation and character contract. I don't know if you want to say anything, Tim. You're good at announcing yourself as well.
What's up, crew?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to Lord for the leadership that you've presented to the Lootverse here. Loot has inspired so many of us to do so many things. I know I've said this for a while now, but when we look back in 10 years from now, I think there's going to be a whole generation of us who say, I'm doing whatever. I'm doing all sorts of Web3 stuff 10 years from now, whether it's games, art, dev, DeFi, NFTs, who knows, unconnected things. But when people ask us, like, how'd you get into all this? We're going to say we started with loot. I know I can say that for myself. I feel like that's true for you, Lord. And what I just want to thank you for is that you have led with such open arms that I think so many more of us, 10 years from now, will be able to say that. I started with loot through people like Lord of a Few who brought me into this ecosystem with open arms. And so you do an amazing job as a leader, both as a sweaty developer, like you just said, but a leader of sweaty folks and sweaty geeks like myself as well. So yeah, thanks, man, for what you've been doing. The heart and soul and energy is real, and seeing you lead us is amazing.
Oh, I appreciate that. That was very nice. Yeah, as you can see, we've got a solid team. We've gathered the all-star team of full stack sweaty nerds to build out this, which is a very novel idea that we're trying to do, and it's grand. It's a grand vision, and we are on track to execute every factor of it. So, and just also, if anybody, like, you can see we're all very active in the Discord. So if you have any questions about Cairo, StarkNet, or whatever, all the core lords are deep writing StarkNet code. They're deep in game design. Everyone's fully involved, and so feel free to reach out with any questions that you have, whether about anything. Also, shout out to the community lords as well. Neo, Grog, Secretive, Andy. Well, they're the only ones that are online at the moment. But also reach out to them for any questions. They've been around since the pre-mint and are true lords and are helping out wherever they can. All right, so let's go into the Master Scroll because this is what everybody wants to know. So I'm going to I'm not going to go like into the deep weeds of every word in this document because we'll be here for hours. I'm going to try to just do broad strokes about, deeper explanation about the bigger picture thing and, our protocol layer that we're building. And any like deep in the weed questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll try and answer them at the end. Or we'll answer them after. So, also a lot of these things that we dropped in this, we've actually been discussing in the loot community and in the loot forums for a while now. It's just we've consolidated it all into this one document. So if you are new to the loot community, there's a lot out. There's a lot of things that get dropped. So in every Discord. So stay engaged, and you'll find more information. In general. So our whole idea with it's been like this since pre-StarkNet, ever since September, when Redbeard and myself and Coin, we were thinking about, how do we create sorry, so I'm just gonna mute someone. If everyone could stay muted, that'd be great, please. How do we create a interactive game that is cheap and scalable? And the only way to do this is on a layer 2. And we actually built an alpha of this game on Arbitrum, but we quickly came to the realization that even though Arbitrum is cheap, it's not cheap enough for a really immersive on-chain game. So we basically scrapped 2 months of 24/7 work on code to re-engineer it all on StarkNet. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make because I just had to throw away all that code. But ultimately, it's the long-term solution that we needed because we would have run into computation barriers and cost barriers on Arbitrum. Just the nature of how optimistic rollup works. So in this economic system, in the initial iteration, we have realms and we have loot. Now, realms, you'll be bridging your realm to StarkNet, and you'll be able to stake it in a game, and you'll start earning resources and lords. And loot, loot bag holders will be able to distill their items, and the items will appear on StarkNet, and you'll be able to equip them to characters. Now, we see loot and all the derivatives on layer 1 as really just like a data layers. and its ownership over those data layers on layer 1. But on layer 2, it's really where the fun happens, and it's where the computation happens, and it's where we can really create a rich experience. Now, this is early, and it is the frontier right now, and so we're trying a lot of new things. But we have an architecture that is scalable, and can keep expanding and can keep building on these experiences. But it's in active development at the moment. So just to note, everything in this document, it's in active development. So some of the information around game, statistics and whatnot will change, because like any game, balancing is, is the most important aspect. And as soon as you chuck a financial aspect into the game, it it adds fuel to that fire. And so we are trying to minimize any potential, exploit in the game itself. And I don't mean like a hack. I mean like, if you chuck a game at a gamer, they'll find it the easiest, like the most efficient way to level up. Like, it's just the nature of a game. And so we're trying to spend all our time on balancing and creating resource sinks, item sinks, to keep the economy in check. And it's like our number one priority. And we're not going to rush anything. We're going to do it very carefully, and make sure we nail it from the get-go. Because once everything is on chain and production is launched, it's very hard to change. So just to touch on the architecture, without going too deep into the weeds, we see this whole game as this decentralized backend, and the user interface that we're building is just one client for it. So anyone, in essence, could come along and build their own game client that interacts with the backend if they choose, just like how Uniswap works. It's a core set of contracts, and Uniswap front end is just one UI. But anybody can actually create their own UI. So I'll just touch on the DAO quickly as well, because this is this is the key aspect of this whole system. It's very similar to how Treasure DAO operates in terms of its everything's denominated in Lords, and the commission from the marketplace and the commission from the AMM all feed back into the DAO, because we see this, we see DAOs as the future of funding open source projects, and there are some really interesting economic benefits to it. So the DAO this is the current allocation of Lords. Now, you can see here, we've got 22.5% of the Biblio treasury, which is allocated to the DAO. Now, this is unlocked, and the only way to unlock this is through a vote on the DAO. And this is going to be the ongoing funding method to keep the project going. And this doesn't include, obviously, the commission that comes in after the game gets going, and from the AMM and the marketplace. So it will be self-funding. We will try to avoid any external fund, investment if possible, and we want to make this thing completely community owned and community governed, without any insiders. So I'll just touch on the. So the guts of this whole game is settling, and it's the macroeconomic kind of production in this ecosystem. It's when you stake your realm, you'll start outputting 100 of each of its resources per day. 75% of these will go to the owner after 24 hours they can harvest, and 25% will go into a vault. Now, this vault is the target for potential raiders to pillage. And so the way that works is a raider will be able to come, and when they attack you, they will be able to access your vault And so if your vault has 500 wood in it, if they are successful in their raid, they'll deplete it by 50%. And so they'll raid it by 250 wood. And now the reason for this mechanic is that it encourages raiding, and everybody likes raiding, and it's the most fun part of the game, really. And so it creates a resource sink for the resources, because you have to create your buildings and you have to create your army in order to begin this raid. So if anyone's played Civ, it's probably the closest analogy to any game, because you have to manage your economic and military output. And so you do this by building buildings, and when you build buildings, it affects your statistics. And so your statistics basically get computed into this value called happiness. And depending on your happiness, it'll either increase or decrease your production rate. And so you have to balance whether you want to go full economic realm or you want to go full military realm. And that's the decision you're going to have to make. And also, I'm not going to go too deep into every specific of this because we'll be here for hours. But I would suggest everybody just read these documents and drop more comments into the chat as we go. Now, wonders are these special buildings, and a wonder in the game will clip a tax on every bit of resource produced. This basically works by when a realm holder claims their resources, a tax gets trimmed, and this goes into a holding contract, and then at the end of an epoch, wonder holders will be able to claim their proportion of that tax. So wonders are very valuable in that sense, and they'll basically be getting a clip of every bit of resource generated in the system. The specifics of this tax is we're still trying to work this out, the actual percentage, because like anything in these big economic systems, we need to balance it correctly, otherwise it'll be too weighted in one direction. More details on that will come later. Troops. So this is your army that you'll be producing on each realm. And so these are isolated to each realm. You'll build a squad out of a composition of units, and these units will then they'll have a specific defense statistic. They'll have all these statistic stats, and when you go and raid another realm, you will go up against their defenses and their squad that they have. And if you're successful in your raid, you'll then win the vault. The absolute mechanics of this is also being worked out. It is open source, so you will be able to squiz at our contracts if you're a contract nerd and have a look at how we're doing it. But obviously it's not into this just yet, into the white paper, because it's all doing randomization on contracts is a tricky thing. And we're actually working with Influence, which is another StarkNet game. And we're probably going to be doing some joint contracts together where we share resources to build some shared infrastructure. And one of these shared infrastructures that we are building is a random number generator. And the random number generator is essential to any PvP or any type of blockchain game, because as everybody knows, blockchains are deterministic, so you can't actually do a random number natively in Solidity or on any blockchain for that matter. So we're working on this with StarkNet and Influence and maybe another game to build this shared infrastructure to really make the PvP element of this game robust. Currently on mainnet, you can do it with Chainlink, random number generator, but there isn't currently an option with StarkNet, but we are building it natively. Now, orders are the emergent gameplay is still really to be determined, but at the crux of it, if you have an order, you will not be able to attack the same order as your realm. This is a realm to realm. I mean, not like you'll be able to attack. If you have realms of lots of different orders, you'll be able to spread it out. Like you'll be able to attack other orders. It's just you won't. If you're Order of Fury realm, you won't be able to attack an Order of Fury realm. That's the current situation. But if anyone has any great ideas around this, drop in the chat. Gameplay is emerging, and we would love to hear everybody's opinion on this. And just a note on after the realms. There are no plans to do more realms at this point in the game cycle. I think once the game hits scale and it makes economic sense to do it, it'll be something that we do. But there won't be any more realms unless it's totally decided by the community. So just a note on that. Like, we're not going to dilute realms or anything. This is like the fixed rarity of the resources as they exist right now. I've gone over the rating. Gone over the macro. Apologies if I'm jumping around a bit. It's like going through a Master Scroll on a chat is a little tricky. Yeah, just a note on token sinks. We will be releasing a pretty wild Google Sheet when it's ready, which basically has all the economic levers in the game. It's in active development at the moment, but we will, once it's ready, we'll release it, and people will try to find exploits in the economic system before pre-game. So everyone will be able to help out in that regard. But yeah, sinks and loops are really, it's the number one thing we think about when we're designing this economic system, because like any blockchain economic system, if you don't get it right, hyperinflation is going to happen, and you'll end up with like an SLP situation where there's too much supply and not enough demand. Now, this is the other key part of the economy. The realms settling game is kind of like the landholders versus landholders part of the game, where it's macro versus macro. But the characters and the loot items are the other really key factor to this economic system. And actually, just give you a little bit of a background. When we originally designed the game back in November, it was originally just going to be realms versus realms. But it quickly became apparent that, for stability in an economic system, you need lots of micro actions. And there's not enough micro actions in 8,000 realms fighting one another. And so we formulated this idea where we can have inflation, but it keeps the value of the items stable, meaning the loot bags still retain their value. But we can create a system that can scale to millions of people. We can scale to millions of people. We just need to get 1 million people playing it. But still, not break down economically. And so this idea is that you take a loot bag and you distill it, and you can distill it once a week or over some period of time. The absolute specifics hasn't been decided yet, and it will be decided with a collection of the loot people in the Lootverse. It's not just going to be decided by the Realms team. We see the loot contract and the character contract as public goods, and we're doing it as a collaborative effort with the rest of the Lootverse. And so inflation's good. You need inflation. Otherwise you can't get new people. So the question then becomes, well, how do you get inflation that doesn't destroy the system? And we think we've come up with a pretty interesting mechanism for this, where you can distill your loot bags and get the items once a week. And so by doing this, we can basically introduce thousands of new people into this system that are trading on the marketplace. They're going on quests. They're staking their characters on realms. They're staking their characters in crypts. And they're providing this glue, this economic glue at the lower kind of economic level than the realms are. And they all feed back into one another. As the characters, will go on quests, they'll earn resources, they'll buy resources, they'll, be spread out across all the different modules, and the characters will then be able to go and craft their items. And when they craft their items, which are mixes of resources, they'll then be able to go and sell them back onto the market to potential realm lords that might want to buy them to stake those items on their realms. So you get this this rich economy happening that wouldn't exist without the characters. So that's really the guts. Actually, I might just pause here if anyone has any questions on this, because I've gone over the game quite a few times, but in terms of loot, I haven't gone over it that much. Anyone duck in for any questions on this?
I got a quick question.
Sure.
One of the things I saw on Twitter is people saying like, "Oh, you need a character to defend your realms," and I didn't see you say that. It was like in a panic. I don't need to know my characters to keep.
Sorry, I can't hear you, mate. Sorry.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
That's much better, yes.
Right. Yeah, sorry about that. So one of the things I saw on Twitter, and I know we can't trust everything we see on Twitter, is, oh, you have to have characters to defend your realms. Is that true? Is that not true? Is that
no? That's not true. No.
Okay.
That's not true. You'll be able to use characters on your realms, but it's not going to be essential. Like,
okay.
No.
I almost dropped 20 grand on characters to make sure my realms were safe.
No. You won't need a character to play the realm game at all.
Also, I would like to interject that characters will be free, so don't drop 20 grand on a character when you can make them for free. Like, we're not charging people for making characters.
And then, so the second part of that question is it worthwhile to buy the individual gear so when we mint a character for free, we can buff them up?
So, Loaf, how far do you want to go into this?
Yeah, look, we're going to release more specifics about that soon, MCD. I don't want to go too... It's in active development, this whole loot inflation thing. And as I've been reiterating a few times, inflation and sinks and loops are high on our list, and we're building in some really interesting mechanics to really keep inflation in check and not have it blow out. But I don't want to release any more information on just yet until we're absolutely certain on the direction. And just to get your heads up, we're working with a lot of the other loot projects on this. So, but yeah, don't worry. I wouldn't drop any. Characters are going to be free to claim. So, and the items will probably be cheap on the marketplace, because there's going to be a lot of them. So, I wouldn't worry too much right now.
Thank you, sir.
So to note, as Anon just said, characters are going to be free to play. Well, they'll be free to play in the sense that you have to claim them for free. But the items themselves obviously will carry a cost to them. But it will still be a really low economic entry into the game, and people will be able to play it and level up, which is really what we want. Because I think everybody here probably owns realms, so we're probably going to be the landholders. But for the next huge cohort of players, we need a lower economic barrier entry, which is what this aims to solve for it all. Just touching on the open item table. I don't go too deep into the technical stuff, but if anyone's ever played like Diablo or anything, which I'm sure a lot of people have, or any game in that matter. Every game works on these big item tables, and you can kind of see, the game version A of the game has 100 items. Then a DLC happens, and you get another 100 items, and basically the item table just gets extended, and that's how you add new content. And so the way that we've designed this entire system is that it's going to be, extendable, in a sense. And so we can keep adding modules and keep adding new projects, and we keep extending the 1155 item table, which just brings more experiences, but that are tightly connected together. And so this is the guts of it. And if anyone comes from a dev background and wants to discuss it more, just reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a lowdown on the contracts and whatnot. So that's the guts of it. Well, that was nice. All right. Well, I think I've gone through a lot of this. I might just leave it at this for now, and just save up any questions, and we can go through them next at the end. So new people to the Discord may not know, but we've actually been working on a minigame that it's going to be released much earlier than the main game. And this minigame it's evolved from its initial spec, like anything does, but it'll be a good introduction into StarkNet, and will give realm holders and anybody willing to participate a chance to experience StarkNet, and also a chance to earn some pretty interesting tokens that will be redeemable down the line for something that's still to be determined, but they will hold value. So I'll just give you a UI sneak peek. So we've been... I apologize if this is a little blurry. The render... this is all WebGL, so it's using a GPU. But it might be a little blurry because for some reason Discord doesn't like it. But this is what the UI is going to look like. This is alpha at the moment. But we've basically, the current state of it, we've about 90% on the contract side, and the UI side is almost there too. So we're connecting it up. But this is what the experience is going to look like. It's going to be a 3D experience in the browser, and you're going to have to attack the Divine City. And so the way this minigame works is it's a PvP game. And so you will go to a contract on layer 1, and you will sign a transaction, and you will be able to pick light or dark. And if you pick light and you sign that transaction, you will receive light tokens directly on StarkNet. If you pick dark, you'll receive dark tokens directly on StarkNet. And it's basically a game of either attacking and defending. And so it is the dark token's responsibility to attack the Divine City. And so you attack by casting your items at the shield. And when you cast your tokens, it will deplete the shield's health. And now the light side can use their tokens to boost the shield back up. And so it becomes this push-pull of attacking and defending that will take coordination off-chain and into the Discord. And we think some pretty interesting dynamics are going to happen. And the other thing to note is that once a game gets started, and the game goes for 36 hours, the effective damage potential of tokens, or the effective healing potential of tokens, increases as the hours go by. And so basically by the end of the 36 hours, in the 36th hour, your token does 50% more damage. And so it will become a game of, a coordination off-chain if you really want to win the game. And whichever team wins the game, so if the shield gets taken down or if the shield stays up, whoever's casted the tokens, they'll be able to go and claim another token relative to how many they've casted, which will be a token native on StarkNet, and that's the only way to get that token. And this will be a special token that you'll be able to redeem later down the line. This whole game is going to be open source, and the front end will be open source, and this model will be open source, so people will be able to use it and do whatever they like with it. But we think this is going to be a really interesting mini game and experimentation into StarkNet, and will really show the power of StarkNet too, and how interesting it is. We'll release a paper on this in the next few days, but it's pretty cool. And I'll shout out to DHAM for doing this amazing model. It's pretty awesome. And Uni has been nailing the contract side of things and the UI side of things as well. So,
looks incredible. Cannot wait. And so, is it team v team? Like how many people?
Yeah, so it's going to be so it's PvP. So you'll basically just filter into light or dark depending on what you choose. And so I'm sure the Grug will be dark. You might be light. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see.
Really interesting. A lot of it was a bit of like the product demo we went through last time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's... Yes, we did.
Is this the same conversation or a different conversation that we're listening to? I can't work out if he's talking to us or not.
I don't know. I don't think it is. Yeah. Well, we're going to release this paper in the next few days, and everybody can really digest it all. All right. So the next thing is the journey contract. Now, I think we were potentially a little too ambitious about when StarkNet would be ready, and after all, it is an alpha software, and it is an alpha. It's the first, zero knowledge rollup that exists. General purpose ZK rollup, and I think we were a little ambitious about when it would be ready. We've actually, like our marketplace contract and bridge contracts are basically complete, but we're not comfortable transferring high value things, which are the realms, at this point, onto StarkNet because it's not stable enough. So we are going to wait until it is stable because it's not worth risking all the Lord's assets. So we will be extending the journey, and there was a slight limitation in the current journey contract, which means we can't just cut the emissions as easy as we expected. So we've come up with two options, and this is also to balance everyone's expectation on the emission rate of Lords, because it's not sustainable doing 312.5 for the next 6 months. It's definitely not going to take 6 months. We're probably estimating early Q2 for this, so maybe another 6 weeks, potentially less. It's yet to be seen, and we're also in the pocket of StarkNet on this. So I've been talking directly with StarkNet, and they've had so much demand on the network that they've had to readjust their schedule to focus on performance issues over the beta release, which is a really good thing. There's every day I see a new project going to StarkNet, and most recently, Blitmap is actually deciding to they're looking at building their game on StarkNet, which is amazing. So there's so much demand for it right now, and the StarkNet team have their hands full, and we are in close contact with them. But ultimately, it is an alpha software. It's on the bleeding edge of crypto right now, and so we are a little beholden to it. And we will not rush the migration unless we are 100% certain it's fine. So, saying that, we have two options. Two options for Realm Lords after the 10 weeks. We are the same contract will exist. So if you do not want to do anything, you can just stay in this contract, and we will airdrop you Lords directly onto StarkNet when it's launched, and it acts as a single-sided staking contract in the meantime. So you'll be able to claim all your Lords up until week 10, just as usual, but after week 10, you'll start earning 350 Lords per epoch for 5 weeks, which when StarkNet is bridged, we'll deposit them. They'll just be bridged directly to StarkNet for you. So you will not be able to claim them every week like you currently are. And you get a bonus of 12% emissions over the new contract. And then after the 5 weeks, it'll drop down to 25 per day, just like the game emissions. So that will happen after the next 5 epochs if StarkNet is not ready. But even if StarkNet is ready, you will be able to earn 25 per day before the game launches, which is the adjustment that we've made. And so there will be an option to earn Lords for the whole time. And so if you want to access the Lords past week 10 pre-StarkNet, you will have to unstake from the current one and restake into this new contract, and it will work very much the same as the current contract. You'll stake in an epoch, and you'll be able to draw out of that. And so any new Lords will just be able to stake, or if you have any new realms that you've suddenly purchased or traded, you can just stake into the new one, and it works as expected. And there'll be a 48-hour window after week 10 for people to be able to do this, so there'll be no, there won't be a gap in your emissions if you want to take this route. And so there's the two options people will be able to choose. I'm sure we're going to get some questions on that in a minute. Yeah, and that's really last thing I just want to touch on the roadmap. As I've probably reiterated a lot in this call, we're StarkNet is alpha, and it is cutting edge, so we are a little beholden to it. We're pushing through, and I think we're being the catalyst for a lot of projects moving to StarkNet as they're looking at our contracts and looking at what we're doing. But ultimately, it's still early, and we want to build something that lasts, which is one of the reasons why we did go with StarkNet. And so we're not going to rush anything. We're going to make sure everything is rock solid before we launch. But in saying that, the minigame will probably it's 95% complete, and we're just waiting on a slight performance and boost from StarkNet before we do release it. So we're expecting that in the next couple of weeks. It might be 2, might be 3, might be 4, but we'll release that as soon as StarkNet is ready for it. And we'll release it on the StarkNet Alpha as well. And the StarkNet bridge, this is also something that's just beholden to StarkNet's development cycle, but it is basically complete as well. And the NFT marketplace, we've actually almost completed this too, except we're just waiting on StarkNet. And then the settling game will come shortly after the migration to StarkNet as well. AMM will be part of the game. PvP contracts will be part of the game. So these 3 things are basically the game. And they'll all come. We're all working them in tandem at the moment. We've actually Milky Taste, who was the first bounty. The DAO has first tech bounty the DAO has issued has actually almost completed the AMM in Cairo, which to my knowledge is actually the first 11:55 AMM that I've ever seen on StarkNet. So he is being a trailblazer there. I'm not sure if he's on the call. He might be. But we'll also, once we're just doing some reviews of it at the moment, but once it is kind of ready, we'll drop it in, and people will be able to have a look at how it's done in Cairo, if any Solidity or Cairo nerds out there. So yeah, that's basically the roadmap. But so well, I think it's time for questions on anything that I've covered. Was there a questions channel? I can't see. Hang on. Alright, I'm just looking at the questions.
I had a quick question. What are you expecting the fees to be able to play the minigame?
I think I may have glanced over that, didn't I? So there will be no to play the minigame. If you like staked your realm, you'll just have to hold a certain amount of lords to play the game, but it won't actually consume any of your lords. And so that'll be the cap. But other than that, there won't be any transaction fees. Any transaction fees, bridge fees, or anything, the realm style will pay for it.
Because transactions are essentially free on StarkNet at the moment, aren't they? So, yeah. Well, that's cool.
I'm just reading through the questions now. Okay, so Spud Smasher made a good question about, how difficult are contracts to change once they're in production. And that's a valid point. The way we've designed the modules, actually it doesn't say it here, but we've abstracted the logic and state into two different contracts. And so we actually are able to update the logic independently of the gaming state. So yes, we will be able to patch, and we will be able to update the logic of the game. By what I meant, it's hard to get things out of the bag. I mean more from the economic point of view. It's hard to change we want to be certain of the sinks, the resource sinks, and everything that we do. Before we launch. So we will run an alpha and a beta and test any potential resource exploits or anything like that. But we will be able to update the game with patches as required.
Neo had a question about how many times we're going to play the minigame.
Good question. So the game will just be going perpetually. We'll have 36-hour games, and so it'll just keep going until we decide to stop it. But I don't know. We kind of see it as this contract which we can keep upgrading and kind of keep changing the dynamics a bit. We might swap it so there's a floating city in hell or something where the light have to attack and the dark have to defend. So we'll change the dynamics up, but it's going to be a perpetual game. It's not just going to stop after one cycle. Anyone got any other questions?
Question.
Pinky. Okay, got it. Okay. The impact of holding OG loot bag is something that draws a lot of questions. Will OG bag holders always have an advantage over non-bag holders if they do not engage at all in the ecosystem? Well, the OG bag holders, they're kind of, they're incentivized to keep emitting the items. because they're the fountain into the system. So if the items are going up in value because there's less supply, they'll be incentivized to keep distilling them. And obviously OG bags are quite expensive assets, so like you'll have an advantage in the sense like they'll become passive income for you in a sense. But they don't really give you a super advantage over anybody else in the game. They're more like the high value data layer.
I think a good comparison is they give you an economic advantage, but not a gameplay advantage.
Uh-huh. What has been the most difficult part of development thus far? What do you foresee being the hardest development challenge in the future? I think we've got the engineering problems sorted. It's just like I can see it all in my head. I just need to click my fingers and make it happen. I think probably I really got to give credit to the all the core lords because they've really anybody that just dives headfirst into a new language immediately demands respect because there's so many easy gains to be made in this crypto space right now that somebody that's willing to take the time and build something that's early and experiment with it's difficult to learn a new language. Like it's not easy. Solidity is like a piece of cake compared to Cairo. And so I think just that probably the hardest part right now is to be honest, I don't think there's nothing like super hard with what we're trying to do. It's just pulling it all together and getting everybody getting kind of the ecosystem aligned around it all. Which is what we've really been trying to do. And that's why we didn't focus on any marketing, because we have just been focusing on the technology side of things, as that is what we want to build. And people will naturally find us that are interested in the project.
Do you think marketing will be something we focus on down the line?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's just there's so many hype projects in this space that we just really wanted to focus on the technology side of things and get the game solid before we did any type of marketing. But obviously once the game is running and live, then marketing for sure.
Hey, can you explain the new staking contract one more time? What was the emissions on it, and also for the Lord staking? Any changes to that?
Sure. Yeah. So this is there's going to be this. So if you just stay in the current contract, and so you don't move your realm, you'll earn 350 per epoch. Lords up to 5 epochs, and then after 5 weeks, it'll be cut down to 25 per day. And then that will be, if you stay in the current contract, those will be deposited directly into your StarkNet account once the bridge happens. But if you decide that you want the Lords immediately, then you can stake in the new contract, and it emits 312.5 Lords per epoch, up for the next 5 epochs. And then cuts to 25, like the other one. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and then for staking Lords, it'll still be 10,000 Lords per day.
Oh, you mean the LP?
Well, that was the second part of my question. I was. Yeah.
The LP. Yeah. So the current LP program goes for another 8 weeks, I think. 6 weeks. We're trying to build out a relationship with Om to do some bonding. I'm actually thinking about reaching out to them to see if they want to do something on StarkNet natively. But I'm not sure their scope at the moment. But there will be some LP rewards for the foreseeable future, even after that finishes. We always want to incentivize some liquidity providers, and we'll probably do some kind of LP rewards on StarkNet directly too. And I'm actually talking with a AMM at the moment. He's probably going to be they're probably going to be one of the first AMMs directly on StarkNet. So we might work out some program with them natively on StarkNet too. That answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Great.
Hey, I just want to ask another question, and again, I'm not experienced in this regard at all, but one of the things I've been asking people about is, I guess, like zero knowledge rollups, and a lot of people are telling me that it's not, I guess, at the current stage very friendly for general like computation. How does that kind of affect the Realms project, and is it limited in that regard? At least in the short term.
Do you mean as in StarkNet's not ready for computation? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or is there anything possibly like Realms could overload StarkNet or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, the way StarkNet works is that it can just handle this crazy computation load. That's what it's been designed from the ground up to do. That's news to me. Are they referring to potentially like a different ZK rollup, or are they referring to StarkNet specifically?
Yeah, so they said in ZK rollups in general, it wasn't mentioned towards StarkNet. I was just wondering, they were comparing and contrasting optimistic rollups to compare to ZK rollups. And it might be just a misunderstanding on my part. So it was just something I was curious about.
Well, the way the EVM works, so optimistic rollups and mainnet, is that they are constrained to the EVM architecture, which does hit its limits. Whereas, Cairo and StarkNet is basically written in a lower level language, and lower level gives the developers more control over things, and allows for better performance, basically. So yeah, it's everything that we've been told by StarkNet and all our tests, and also all the other projects building on StarkNet, people are doing some pretty crazy things. It's news to me that StarkNet can't take it. Also remember, there's quite a few ZKs in the wild, but most of them are very bespoke to one problem. So Loopring, for example, it's bespoke to trading. It's not a general purpose smart contract platform. StarkX and StarkX, which is IMX's bespoke program rollup written by Starkware. It's bespoke to purely just NFTs. It's not a smart contract platform either. So maybe in the realm of other ZKs, they're not computationally possible, but because StarkNet's basically a smart contract platform built around high scalability and high computation, it's not going to have any problem handling what we're chucking at it.
Okay, perfect. I think that answers my question. I really appreciate that.
No worries. Keep them coming. It's definitely the frontier right now. So everyone has questions. I have questions every single day. This is I think the writing's been on the wall that L2 is the path for blockchains. And I think this year we'll see StarkNet reach its own optimistic. Well, we love optimistic rollups, by the way. They're great things. It's just they're not suitable for gaming in our point of view. They're going to be around for the foreseeable future, because they are great for little small contracts, trading on, doing simple things. It's just it's just for gaming, like rich gaming, where you have to, say compute 5 or 6 different values together from 5 or 6 different contracts. EVM just kind of breaks when you try to do that. So
I wanted to pick your brain about one other thing. In that decision, and you might have covered this before, in that decision comparing StarkNet to possibly deploying like a side chain or possibly going over to Polygon, was there something that really that you favored on StarkNet compared to those other options?
Yeah, good question. I see, like, well, firstly, side chains. I mean, this is also like a philosophical point of view, and I could be wrong, but my point of view is, side chains don't really borrow the security of L1. They're like their own chain, so you're basically putting your trust in that side chain. If it goes down, your funds could be lost forever. Um, and Polygon's a side chain. Polygon's great, by the way, but it is fundamentally a side chain technology. It's not a L2. Um, and we don't we want to make a game. We don't want to make a blockchain. So I don't want to run an app chain specifically for this. We see like StarkNet is basically solving this problem that you're saying. It is the general purpose smart contract platform that you can do the computation on. It basically makes Solana redundant. It makes any other L1 redundant once it's going to hit some scale.
And StarkNet are also releasing a concept that they're calling Layer 3s later on this year, which provides a lot of the benefits that something like Cosmos or one of these other app chains provide to.
Yeah, it's it comes down to composability as well. This is analogous with like any software network. You want to give the developers just the tools to build things, and those tools, once they're built, should be open to everyone. And when you do that, you create this ever expanding ecosystem of mini applications that all work together. And if anyone's written JavaScript or anything, when you do yarn install or npm install, all those little packages that you're installing, that's someone else's work that they've done, which allows you to run that application with a click of a finger, and you can build on top of it. It's similar to how Ethereum works. Everyone now is kind of reaching maturity. You got Uniswap, you got Compound, DeFi kind of started this whole thing. DeFi is kind of these little building blocks, everyone building together, trying to get this extra yield. That's composability right there. And we see the same. We want the same thing to happen on StarkNet. We want to create this game, but influence, as I mentioned before. I don't know, maybe he's here. Is he here? Darkos. Maybe he's not. Anyway, that's a cool project. They share very similar ethos to us in terms of what they see a blockchain game should be. But for example, this random number generator, right? If we were going to run our own bespoke blockchain, we'd have to come up with that random number generator ourselves. No one else can use it. Whereas now, because both projects are running on StarkNet, it's almost like a shared thing that we can both build and we can both leverage in both of our projects. So both of us don't need to write it; only one of us does. And you can expand that out with any type of logic you can think of. That's how you get this network effect, and that's how the network grows. It's like the internet, right? Internet's just a collection of hyperlinks connected together.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No worries.
Hey, Lord of the Few, 404 here.
Hi,
how much time do you expect, if I owned one realm, how much time do you think or foresee being spent inside the game or any other mini games, and for that, and also for future games?
Well, I think the settling game specifically. Look, you don't if you staked, you can just be a lazy landlord and just you'll probably get pillaged, so you'll probably never get to claim your vault, but you'll still be able to claim whatever you accrue. So if you don't want to do anything, you could probably just harvest the resources and sell them on the market, and you're still contributing to the economy in that way because those resources are getting consumed somewhere else. But if you really want to be take on Grug or something, you're going to have to, you're probably going to have to, you know, I don't know. It's hard to estimate how much time, but it's going to be like we're going to make it as simple as possible. So like you'll be able to build multiple buildings in one transaction, for example. You'll be able to build a whole squad of units in one transaction. And so like if you want to be raiding realms and whatnot, like you're going to have to be spending a bit of time, but ultimately it's probably economically viable to do so.
I actually have some numbers, rough number range, if you would like me to give that, Loaf.
Go for it.
So, completely passive, no gameplay, and you're rated constantly, you're not doing anything, you're not managing happiness, you could see 38% of the base output per day. So 38% efficiency. At max happiness and claiming your entire vault and defending successfully, you'll see about 150% increase. So a active realm that's being managed well and defended well will see about 3 times output.
Nice.
Great. That answers some of my questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, then as the game expands, it might take a bit longer, but yeah, that's great. Thanks, Anon. All right, I've kind of lost track of all the questions in there. If anyone, okay, hang on, let me try to find it. It's kind of gone a bit nuts. Where are we? Will current contract have the same 48-hour delay before Epoch 11? No, the current contract will just stay like that, so you won't have to do anything. Like you don't have to do anything. Like if you don't want to either. Like you can just not touch your realms at all in this new contract. All right, Smud Smasher asks, could we touch on token sinks for lords? So yeah, I mean the main token sinks for lords, like we will be doing some kind of single side staking on StarkNet. We're going to try and incorporate it into the game so that liquidity adds value to the overall ecosystem. So there's going to be that, and there's obviously the NFT marketplace will be denominated in lords, which provides the ultimate utility for that, and then the AMM will also be denominated in lords as well. So there's a bunch of sinks and loops going on here. All the resources, by the way, are consumables, so they get burnt like as soon as you use them. So that's what keeps that inflation in check from that regard. I'm not going to release any more information about the single side on StarkNet until we give absolute specifics on it. But yeah, rest assured there will be one. And there also will be like LP rewards and whatnot around the place.
Just following up on the LP point, what would be the token pairings for that with Lords? Would it be ETH or some other asset?
Oh, you mean on StarkNet?
Yeah.
Oh, alright, I know. Well, yeah, I'm imagining these AMMs are going to be there's an L2, so you'll be able to if anyone's used ZK Sync, like you can see you can transfer from mainnet to L2 like really quickly. So it's going to be similar to that. And I think Zigzag. If anyone's used Zigzag Swap, or if they haven't, go check it out. That's they're building integration with StarkNet, but they've already got it running with ZK Sync. So that'll give you a kind of a rough example of how it works. But it'll be denominated in ETH and Lords. But because it's on StarkNet, we'll probably do more pairs as well. Like I want to see Lords and Lords and other native games tokens. And so you just have this like DeFi matrix of liquidity flowing between games. I think it's going to be a sight to behold. But it'll be the main one will be denominated in Lords for sure. I mean, sorry, in ETH.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Any? Hang on, I'm just getting back. Talk about the Observatorium partnership. At this point, we're there's going to be a light integration with the realms. They're building the realm maps. But I can't announce any other deeper integration than that right now. Any initial thoughts on how Lords, A Gold, A Time, and other ERC20 loot comes along would coexist? We don't have any specifics on that at a current time. But I'm not sure we'll support AGLD, but something might change. But at this point in time, where our focus is on Lords, and we do have some interesting ideas with A-Time, but we can't give any specifics on that. I just don't want to promise anything just yet. DM, yeah, we covered. Just to let everyone know about the minigame. Like, if you're a realm holder, like, you'll be able to play for free. It's not going to cost you anything. You'll just have to hold some lords, which you would have earned a lot from the staking. But we want as many people to play this game as possible. It's going to be a really interesting game of off-chain coordination and trust between guilds.
Panda?
Hello. Will over-the-counter resource trading be possible within guilds? It's a good question. Technically, yes, because they kind of act in their first iteration. They'll just kind of act like a cheap Gnosis multisig, basically, where guild holders will just have to sign a transaction. It's also quite an exploratory path we're taking with that. So probably expect the whole that part of the guilds and the account abstraction to change a bit, because it hasn't never been done really before. It's also a frontier with StarkNet that allows it to happen. So that's an active development. But anything is possible. Genesis Adventurers OBS composed of OG items, so I assume that GAs will have a role to play. More will come on that very soon, but I'm not going to say any more than that just yet.
Hey, Lord, one thing I could share right now, though, this alpha per se, but kind of a cool, fun development bridge between the communities while we're also in game dev.
Yeah.
We're actively brainstorming right now how we can flip over the Genesis Adventure contract such that you mint with Lords as opposed to minting with ETH. That was your idea. I love it. I think it's such a Lootverse native idea. And in some ways, it's almost a sync for Lords pre-launch of the game, and an acknowledgement of the fact that in some ways the game has already begun. The game is also the building of the game. Uh-huh. So if anyone has ideas on that, happy to have that chat in the Realms Discord, but also happy to have that chat in the Genesis Discord. We need a little bit of feedback in terms of the mechanism to do that math and how you would keep the right ratio. But just wanted to share that out. There's a lot of love between the Genesis the Realms communities, and I think it's been a bridge that's been an example to set for the rest of the ecosystem about building a cohesive and infinitely expansive universe together. So calling that out, no promises there either way, but love the idea, and if we can make it work, I'm a big +1 on it.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I want to see it happen. I'll do what I can. We're big GA fans. I have a very special GA that I minted called the Lord of Linen as well. He's like the first full mage as well, wasn't he?
The first full mage and the comfiest Genesis adventure, that's for sure.
It's so comfy.
Yeah, I remember trying to talk you into like doing silk. I was like, I don't know, there's a lot of silk available. Wouldn't you want to do that? And you're like, I don't know, linen just seems comfier than silk. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and then Tim discovered the power of linen, and it was not that high. So I was like, oh, he's still comfy, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're ready to do that. We just have to think about the economics of how to make it work. We were thinking you have an option to both mint with ETH or Lords, but then you get weirdness between, like, arbitrage between the two. So, I mean, hell, maybe we just flip the whole thing over to mint only with Lords. We're having that active discussion right now, though, so if anyone wants to help with that, pop into the Genesis Discord. And I'm a huge fan. I think it would be another continued example of just building, again, a sort of infinitely expansive but cohesive universe together as a wider community.
Totally. Yeah, no, I'm all for that. Let's make it happen. What else we got?
Can I make a plug for lore? Just a plug for lore. We've begun to weave the Orders lore and the Realms lore a little bit tighter to the sort of core loot lore. So if anybody wants to help out with that, we're going to be upgrading loot.foundation over the coming days and week. We have it all sort of mapped out in Excel sheets and honestly a lot of people's minds. But we're going to try to formalize that so the loot.foundation site is not only the foundational lore of loot, but also the foundational lore of realms. And a recognition of the fact that realms is loot. Loot is realms, and that we're all building this one sort of cohesive universe together. And so loot.foundation will be a place that you'll be able to hit if you're building on top of realms, around realms, to be able to understand kind of the canonical lore around the orders, around the realms, and even we can pull some of the resource stuff into there as well. So if anyone wants to help, we're in the lore channel in the Realms Discord, and actively working on that now.
Amazing. I'm just going to answer, is there any protocols or anything else live on StarkNet right now? There is, Bricks, sorry. Yeah, we've been answered that. I need to read it a little bit more. Yeah, those guys are cool. I think they might be on the call. And we have actually an exciting thing to announce with them coming up as well. I can't give any more details than that other than we are working with them on something special. But that's a cool, really innovative StarkNet project, Bricks. But if you jump into the StarkNet Discord and have a look around, it's getting a little crazy in there, like any Discord gets. But also follow Starkware on Twitter. They're always reposting whenever a new project happens. There's also a few really good people to follow on Twitter. There is Guilty Gyoza. Actually, I might just drop their names in the chat. Because if you follow those guys on Twitter, you will. The best way to get StarkNet Alpha is follow the right people on Twitter. And if you have a GitHub, follow them on GitHub too, because and just for that, generally just follow any developer that you like on GitHub, and they will always be starring or committing to really interesting repos, and it's often the first place to find new protocols coming out is GitHub. It's a goldmine. And just like there's just so much like academic kind of like just it feels like Cairo is kind of just like I mean StarkNet is just like sniped all these blockchain devs to start building this, building these new applications that weren't possible in an EVM environment. And because it's kind of like hard in its current iteration and it's a bit rough around the edges, it's kind of filtered out people unless they're super serious about learning or they're like super academic around blockchains. It's kind of similar to like Solidity back in like 2015. If anyone was looking at it back then, I know I looked at it back then and I didn't get into it, which I wish I should. But it was rough around the edges. There was a lot of packages to install. There wasn't much Stack Overflow. Like it was very rough. But then look at it now. It's evolved, and just like any open source thing, it will keep evolving. Any other cues or anything? Anything I miss in there?
I think you.
Sorry. What?
I think you've hit most of it.
Sweet. Well, yeah. As I said, look, I didn't go like into every nitty gritty bit of the game because there's a lot in there, and I would suggest everybody, like, if you haven't really read it, or like read it a few times, and pop questions into the chat, because either a core dev will answer it or a community lord will answer it. But we're all building this game really together in the open source spirit. So if anybody has any inputs or sees something that's kind of weird, we want to hear it. So yeah. But yeah, I think if there aren't any more questions currently, we'll probably end this. It's an hour and a half right now. We have kept it quite tight. But yeah, we will be having more of these Lord's tables a bit more frequently. The last couple of months have been just heads down trying to, get this, in way more developed. But we're reaching some big milestones. So we want to have more of these Lord's tables more frequently, where anybody can ask questions. Or maybe we'll just go. We might keep them scoped to like one aspect of the game or something. There's a lot to cover today. All right. Well, no one has any questions, then we might just end it there. But thanks everyone for coming in, and it's great to see all the new lords and all the new faces. But yeah.
Thank you.